Meeting April 17, 2024. Time is 4 p.m. This meeting is called to order. I'm clerk.
City Attorney Doctor.
Here.
City Manager Burton.
Here.
Commissioner Stevens. Here. Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Shirtless.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission Administrative Meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. Commissioner Reed, you have the floor.
Thank you. I attended a meeting last week with some businesses from downtown, and there was a discussion about our permitting process. And a number of issues were raised, and I think a couple of them are ones that we might be able to address relatively quickly and easily without budgetary implications. So I was hoping to get consensus to work with the city manager's office to move forward on a few of those. The number one issue I heard was in the current permit process, which I understand is not our permanent process, it's one we're using until the ERP fully comes online. But when you apply for a permit, you have no idea what it's going to cost you. It doesn't tell you as you go through, it doesn't calculate anything. And so you submit your permit and eventually you will receive a bill from different departments for different things. But you don't know at the time of the application what the cost is going to be. And for a number of permit applicants, that was a big concern. And so I'd like to see if there's a way that we can do, even if it's not your final bill, a sort of running tally, here are the costs associated with the things you're asking for. And with that also, there's not currently a good indication at the time of application of how long it's going to take to hear back. And I know we have some issues with the software, so the whole confirmation that your permit has been received or your application has been received, that's not consistent. So if there's a way to look into how we might say, add in some response about your permit has been received, you will hear back in X amount of time. Because we had 2 applicants who had applied and it had been several months and they hadn't heard anything. So in order to increase the transparency in the permitting process for applicants, I would ask if there's consensus to see if we can improve those 2 things in the short term, given that it is high permit season. I think it would be great and would allow us to be responsive as we move towards our more permanent permitting solution.
Manager Burton.
Mayor, the answer is yes. And actually, I think some good progress has been made in the last couple of days, even since we talked to the commissioner. And if you want to hear from David on a quick update, we're certainly here and able to do that. Not that all of the issues are resolved, but if you're okay with that, Mayor.
Dr. Kanopki.
Mayor and Commissioners, there was a glitch in the current electronic application form where if ABC Marathon was submitting, once it was pushed out to the departments, it was basically deleting all the information in the application and putting back the very first application of the year. So we received a bunch of don't fence me in applications. So since then, or since we identified the issue, a few weeks ago, we've been working with Curtis Dene through DocuPhase. I want to say DocuSign, but it's DocuPhase. And I think we finally got it fixed yesterday or today. The events that have been submitted are coming through. So we think that glitch is fixed. As far as some of these other items that the commissioner is talking about, the new event software that's coming out with ERP through Tyler, it does have a step-by-step process. So as you step through it, right now you can't currently save an application. You have to go from start to finish. The new one will have a save draft kind of format. So if you don't have an item that you need attached, you can go get it. You don't have to start all over again. The fees will be calculated up front. It actually, the There's a payment portal that's included now with the new software so that they can pay online or so a lot of the issues that I hear the commissioner hearing from the public will be resolved with this new ERP system. It's going to be a lot different than it is because it does take you more step by step through the process, but I think it will be better. And I think we're looking at possibly rolling that out sometime in the next couple months. It just kind of depends on where that falls through as the ERP comes online and other modules come online. This one will come online with the community development, the new building permitting system is part of that permitting system.
So in the meantime, since it's a couple of months, do we have a temporary solution to the issues?
So the current application that was working last year is currently back up and running. We got the issue fixed. We can put out some additional information on costs. There's typically only the cost if you're a small event or a large event, or if you're going to rent signage, but that signage is a later process. So we can get information up there for that in the meantime.
Mayor and Director Konopki, and it's my understanding too that staff is reaching out to those permittees who've had difficulties.
Yes, we contacted them all directly. We went back to a paper format just to ensure that we could get it processed if we weren't successful in getting this electronic piece fixed. So they are being contacted, and we're pushing through those those events that got lost in space.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Any others? Okay, board appointments. I'm recommending the following board appointment: Board of Adjustment. Appointment of Carissa Beckwith to an interim term on the Board of Adjustment as a citizen member. Interim term will expire October 1st, 2026. Helena Tourism Business Improvement District, reappointment of John Lytle to a second term on the Helena Tourism Business Improvement District. Term will expire June 30th, 2027. Helena Public Arts Committee, appointment of Renee Kelly to a first term on the Helena Public Arts Committee. Term will expire December 31st, 2026. Commissioners? Discussion? I'll entertain a motion. Today's Wednesday, sorry. Hey, I'm rolling on. Recommendations from Helena Citizens Council, Representative Awesome, you have the floor.
Hi there. No recommendations from Helena Citizens Council. We continue to have our conversations about weighing in on budgetary considerations and attending all commission meetings, but no recommendations at this time.
Thank you. Comments or questions for Representative Allison? Thank you. City Manager's report.
Mayor, I have nothing to report this evening.
Presentation, K. McKinney Youth Foundation Board.
Thank you, Mayor. As Wilmot said, my name is Rick Schlinker. I'm the president of the K. McKenna Youth Foundation, and I'm joined today with Chuck Ball, who's also with the K. McKenna Youth Foundation. I know you've got a full agenda today, but we wanted to take this opportunity to publicly and personally thank the City of Helena Commission and also the City of Helena for your generous $50,000 grant to the K. McKenna Youth Foundation. Going to be using this money for a continued support of K's Kids. It's a summer recreational program for children 6 to 11, and it's administered at Memorial Park. We're in our 29th year with K. McKenna Youth Foundation sponsoring of K's Kids, and it was actually the brainchild going back of K. McKenna, past City of Helena mayor, local educator, and just a champion of children's causes in the community. We'd also like to thank the Helena Parks and Recreation Department, and especially Kate Paradin, who's Director of Aquatics and Recreational, for her continued support and organization and administrating the program over the last few years. And we hope that we'll have many more years of sponsoring Kay's kids in the community. Again, just thank you. It's such a benefit to a small nonprofit of ours. We're based here in Helena. As I said, we've been here for 29 years. And the program over the years has continued to grow. And we had a little bit of setback during the pandemic, but Kate and her staff picked it up. We're getting back to where we were almost post-pandemic. So thank you very much. Is there anything, Chuck, that I forgot that you'd like to add?
You know, Rick is so elegant about his presentations. I just ditto what he says, but you know, is there anybody that has any questions between myself and Kate or Rick? I'm kind of the old person on the board. I've been around for about 20 some years now. I don't even know how many it has been. So if you guys got any questions about what we're doing out there, feel free to. If not, we appreciate everything Kate does for us. Trust me, it makes it a no-brainer.
Commissioners, comments or questions? Yes.
Just really briefly, I'm super excited that you're going to be able to do more programming again this year. And I know it's been a little while since we had the memos when we were going through how we were going to allocate some of that funding. So I wonder if, just for the public, if you might be able to talk about what some of the additional impact will be with the additional funding.
Well, we're hopeful we can actually provide, you know, a continuation of the program, but also provide more activities. I know Kate's been working on that. We've been doing more field trips with the children to local attractions, more access to the swimming pool, which is right next door to Memorial Park. We have been partnering with Sodex for children's lunches and for treats. So we're hopefully we'll be able to continue that. We're hopeful Sodex can continue to do that. And just be there and provide the service. Like I said, Kay's Kids provides a venue for children in the community on a daily basis for 8 weeks during the summer. And without the program, I don't know if they would have the opportunity. So just being able to present it, having the City of Helena be a partner in this over the years and hopefully in the future makes the program viable. And it's a much cheaper alternative to a lot of the programs that are in town. So, and like I said, we were over 5,000 summer daily uses prior to the pandemic. And we dropped back considerably the first 2 years after the pandemic. It was almost impossible to have the program. But over the last 2 years, Kate and her staff have managed to slowly eat that up. And I'm hopeful we get back to the day where we can have it at 3 parks as we did before the pandemic. We'll see how it goes. But the grant just recognizes what an important program it is. It recognizes that there is a program out there for the children and provides a respite for not only parents, but grandparents and others in the community with children that are 6 to 11 to have a safe place to go. And like I said, that's kind of what we've been doing for 29 years. It's worked, and it's worked 29 years with the City of Helena doing the administration. So thanks again for everything that you've done, not only for Kay McKenna, but all the nonprofits and all the organizations and entities in Helena that have received grants on behalf of this city commission and city. And as a last kudos, keep up the good work. It's good seeing that our government here in Helena works. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Department reports. Presentation. Director Danielson, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. It's good to be here tonight. So this evening it's a continuation of our kickoff that we had at our last administrative meeting of presentation of the fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget. I'm going to start off with just more of a general overview and where the general fund sits and some considerations for the commission to look over. So my my overview will happen, and then we'll start to get into each department's presentations through that. So we have most of our general government entity or divisions here today to present their budgets to the commission. So we have the general fund overview. I want to talk a little bit about our reserve balances, the projection of revenue in the general fund, and the estimated preliminary expenditure projections, a recap of our recommendation for general capital. There's also a conversation that needs to be had amongst the commission for any community program funding, and discuss how we got to where we're at today, putting into mind that we wanted to present a baseline budget to the commission so that we could prioritize any additional funding requests and have the commission weigh in on that. For compensation overview, I will tap the Human Resources Director to give a brief overview of where we came in at this year with our health insurance and all of her hard work on the MMIA board and discussions with that, and then a discussion about potential COLA for city employees. Next slide. So as a recap, our things have changed just slightly since we last talked. I mean, things are kind of ever moving until we finalize our budget. But as of today, our estimated reserves for fiscal 24 at the end of the year is estimated to be $5.65 million. Out of that, we have an operating reserve requirement of 60 days of operations. And so that's estimated to end up at $4.7 million. At the end of fiscal 24, that kind of leaves almost $1 million, a little under $1 million. So that's where we came to the $1 million recommendation for capital funding for fiscal 25. As a reminder to the commission, most of our capital funding for general government items either has to come from debt service or from cash reserves, and that's how we fund our capital for general government investments. We do still have the established contingency reserve of $2.57 million. That is in addition to that $5.65 million cash reserve. So that is still intact. With spending down our cash reserves, I don't anticipate that we'll have any additional funding for that contingency cash amount as of the end of fiscal 24 or potentially fiscal 25, but I never know that until we get to the final year and look at what our carryover obligations are and what we have left to be able to fund that contingency reserve. Next slide. So as I presented at our last administrative meeting, we're proposing a total of $1.6 million in general capital improvement investments for fiscal 25, with a proposed funding from general fund cash reserves of $1 million. There's some reserves in our capital fund that would be tapped for about $388,000. With potential $30,000 funded from a donation. There's also some funding in there from Public Works. They have a vehicle, their industrial facilities division has a vehicle in that expenditure line, and the funding from that comes from the capital, from the Public Works funds, and about $70,000. And then the Parks Capital is proposing to kick in $120,000 from their capital fund to fund the golf or the tennis court rebuild next to the Civic Center. Next slide. Just to break it down by category, $700,500 in facility improvements, and that includes boiler replacement out at the fire station, which is pretty important. Some other facility improvements, the parks maintenance. We have the largest of that category is the K McKenna tennis court rebuild. We have parks maintenance, which is that court rebuild, and then also some just general repair and maintenance, some equipment replacements, and then the truck for industrial facilities. I can get you that list again, but I believe it was in your packet last time, but if you'd like, I can get you that list again. Next slide. So when I looked at our revenues for fiscal 25, I'm estimating them to come in at about $28.8 million. Of that, 38.4% is general property taxes. 9.35% would come from the permissive health levy, 18% from state shared revenue, 2.4% from charges for services, 15.6% from cost recovery, and other miscellaneous revenue like grants, et cetera, at 16.15%. Next slide. So of the property taxes of 28.8 million, 11.1 million is estimated being from our general property tax revenue. I'm estimating the values at about 106 million. Obviously, I won't know that until August, and we won't be able to finalize what our actual mills will come in at. But at this time, I'm estimated about 106 million in proposed taxable values, which is about a 4% increase from the prior year. We are estimating to have the fire levy transfer into the general fund 675,000 from their levy to support the 6 firefighters and their operating costs. So part of that levy funds capital, and the rest of that levy funds 6 firefighters and their operating costs. And so we're estimating 675,000 transfer from that levy into the general fund to support the fire services.
Director Anderson?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Danielson, the estimated values for FY 25, what is it accounts for that 4% increase?
I'm sorry, what?
The 4% increase, what is responsible for that?
Just general expansion of the tax base and estimated values going up, but primarily expansion of the tax base because we're not in an assessment year this year. So I've just estimated about a 4% increases expansions of the tax base. Yeah. And I've estimated that I don't know if I have that on here or not, but I did look at that as far as what that would be in mills, and estimating about 106 mills for the general property tax levy, about 10 mills for the fire levy, and 25 mills for the permissive health levy at this time. Again, those are just preliminary estimates until we get our actual taxable values from the state in August. Yes, sir.
So really that's new construction primarily.
Go ahead.
That's right. We might be getting to this when we talk about HR, but do we know where other municipalities are falling on their health insurance levies? If we're comparable right now.
Well, we did have some information. It might be dated, but
On the municipal levy?
yeah.
Mayor, Commissioner Dean, I haven't, I do have some past history on levy information from cities, but I don't have that right now because people are still estimating that. But I could certainly bring that information as I get that information to have that comparison across cities. Again, we levy what we for just the general government employees, what we're above our base. And then that restricts us on how much we can levy for that permissive health levy.
The only reason I'm asking is that I know, and someone else could probably speak to this more thoughtfully, but one of the things that came up is some of the past property tax years was our permissive levy, and local government and school districts are not allowed to participate in state health insurance, which is why we have this to help pay for us. And so it just something, I mean, not that we would obviously make any adjustments this year, but it might be helpful to have that information available, because if we could save our property taxpayers some money if the state would allow us to be part of their pool, for example, that would decrease our costs and their or fewer mills for that municipality.
Well, Director, in our discussions, the permissive levy for health insurance is actually lower on the proposed budget than it was last year.
Yes, by about a couple of mils, yeah, and we can go into that later, but we actually had a reduction to our health insurance costs this year. We're budgeting for about 2.9 million in the general government, for general government employees for health insurance. It's we have to subtract our base, which was right around 200,000, where we started with the base, and so then we levy above the base for based on our taxable values. So it was a pleasant surprise that we had a reduction in our health insurance. Any other questions on that? Next slide, please. So that was just the kind of an overview of our general, our permissive levy. I'm estimating at about 2.7 million or 25.2 mils. Last year, we levied 27.5 mils. With the estimated taxable values, each mill generates about $106,000. And I can open it up at this point. We did have an overall savings to our health insurance for our employer contribution of 4%. And I believe at this time I'll just let Director McMahon talk about that process, as she was the one that was working real hard on the city's behalf for our premium rates.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Renee McMahon, Human Resources Director. Yes, I've been working for the last couple of years with MMIA. They are really great partners for our health insurance and carriers and for all the cities and towns in the state. As you know, it's a pooled organization. So we all work together to make sure we can manage our long-term costs for our health insurance premiums. We've been strategically working on reducing the loss ratios in terms of the premiums over claims, specifically for the city of Helena. And then, of course, working toward helping all the cities and towns maintain their costs. We originally had a rate increase of 13% to our health insurance. MMIA recommended a 3% contribution buy down, basically using their reserves to bring it all to a 10% increase in health insurance. Through our efforts to improve our loss ratio, Helena actually was reduced an additional 5%. And then we had some plan modifications to our tradition plan to bring it down another 8.7%. So in total, then we had over a 4% decrease to our actual health insurance premiums for the city of Helena, which has been really unheard of and exciting to get to this point. So through our partnership, through good strategic work through the city of Helena, we were actually able to reduce our premiums.
And the 4% equates to what dollar amount?
It saved us about $143,000.
Mayor, I'd like to thank publicly Director McMahon, who sits on my board and has for 2 years, 3 years. 2 years. Job well done.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for that. We know that one of our major competitors is the state of Montana, and so we keep a real close eye on what they do for wages and benefits. And one of the first things we heard was that our health insurance really could not compete with their rates, especially at the higher levels with spouse and families. And so through City Manager Burton's support, we were able to match and retain the same premiums that the state offers to their employees. And so we're keeping a close eye on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions for the Director? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. The next category of revenue is our state shared revenue. Again, that's our entitlement revenue. We also have alcohol, vehicle, gambling taxes, and district court fees that come through for that. I don't know at this time what the actual amount will be. They publish that every year and they haven't published out our actual amount, but I did estimate, an average increase for that, and we'll see where it comes in when they actually publish their data. Estimated growth of about 3.4%, or increasing that by $171,000. So the total state shared revenue currently budgeted is about $5.2 million for the general fund. Charges for services, that only makes up about 2.4% of our general fund revenue. That comes from parks and rec fees, and for public safety contracts that they charge out their services for those. We also have cost recovery budgeted at $4.5 million. And so what that is just allocating general overhead out to other funds for services that they receive from general government funds, such as yourself, the city attorney's office, city finance office, etc. There's formulas that allocate that out to the other funds, and that's at about 4.5 million. And about 4.66 million in other revenue, like intergovernmental revenue, licenses, permits, some investment interest, and transfers. Next slide. Currently, our proposed expenses are $28.6 million. That leaves us with about 247,000 of revenue over expenditures at this time. Your document says 251, but we've made some slight changes since I published this, so it's about 247,000 right now. The items that are actually included in this baseline budget are just that, our base operating costs. The police contract changes for their compensation are built into this budget. Their contract changes called for a 3% cost of living adjustment in the general fund, so that is built into this budget. Our health insurance premium and operating transfers to other funds, such as the transfer that we give to the Civic Center, the transfer that we give to transit, etc. Those are already built into the baseline budget. What is not included in this baseline budget right now currently is a COLA for not only general fund employees, but all city employees. There is no allocation for any of the loan programs or community grants right now that are built into this budget. And so those will be decisions that the commission has to make throughout this process. Next slide, please. Yes.
Would we be able to, maybe at the next budget meeting or in an email or something, so if we decide, since COLA, sidewalk loan program, solar loan program, and the community grants aren't in there, off the top of my head, between the solar, sidewalk, and community grants, that would be like $350,000.
No, Commissioner and Mayor, I have a note about typically our community grants. Well, if you wanted to fund the other, like the loan programs, that would be more, but typically you'd come in at about $36,000 for the same grants that you've been making over the last 5 years. The sidewalk program you've funded through your ARPA savings last year, so there was no money that came from the general fund, and the solar program you funded through ARPA savings as well. So there's no set amount to fund for those. You can choose whatever you want, but it would have to come from cash reserves.
So what I recall, before we had ARPA, so it would have been like FY21. We had 150 for sidewalks, I think 75 for solar, and then the community grants have been, I think, pretty consistent around like 40,000. So if with the COLA, we would have to rely on cash reserves to consider anyways.
Mayor and Commissioner Dean, yes, that is correct.
Although there is, if we go back, I mean, there is new revenue that's not been allocated in this budget too. $250 some $1,000.
That's the balance that I have. As far as right now, I have about 247,000 of revenue over and expenditures that can be utilized.
So that would be combined with any reserves that the commission sets and gives.
And then will we get a, I guess, separate sheet of like, if we do a 1% COLA, 2, 3, 4, I mean, I know we talked about it a little last time, but those,
It's in the packet.
oh, it is?
Yeah.
So I was just gonna ask, I know I saw it, but I can't find it in this one. Was it in this one? The last one I saw.
Where did it go? I don't know.
I know I've seen it. I couldn't remember where it was.
Well, we can get it for you today,
Okay, great.
because it's already been through the.
This is the chief of the
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. I've got it on page 16.
Thank you.
Maybe I just jumped the gun.
Yeah. You have jumped the gun. Okay. So we will move to those slides. Thank you.
I'll be quiet back here.
You're just so excited about it. You just want to get going. So, again, we presented, basically our base operating budget. We have a delta of 247,000 of revenues over expenditures. Anything above and beyond that the commission would have to come out of cash reserves. Next slide. So this says 251, but it's at 247 now. I know that some of the items that were unfunded this year that came out of their budgets, there was a request for a risk manager position. There was a request for leadership training that's sponsored by, who sponsors that? Local Government Center, thank you. Fire cut their operating costs by $48,500. Police cut their operating costs by about $20,000. And the clerk,
Excuse me, Kurt, they cut their request.
yeah, they cut their requests. Yeah, thank you. And then the clerk's office proposed a record scanning project and can increase an employee by another 0.5 for a scanning project. And then there were about $100,000 of other request cuts throughout the departments to get where we're at today. Again, we did recognize the $142,000 in health insurance savings, which helped us get to the point where we're at today. And we also moved a position out of the general fund project manager that is currently managing our ERP system. He'll be transitioning over to the MPO program over in the streets program. So that position will come out of the general fund altogether. And so that created some savings as well. Next slide. So this is where we get into your. So at this time, when I look at estimating what the cost of a COLA for our employees, it's about $90,000 in the general fund per 1% until you get up to the 4%. Then we have to add an additional 1% for the contracted policemen. And then if we went to a 5%, I would have to add another 2% for the contracted policemen. So estimated, 1% COLA to the general fund is 90, 3% is 268, 4 is 406, and 5 is 544. And then the other, what the impact of the COLA to each of the other funds, like the special revenue funds and the enterprise funds combined, that would be the impact to their funds. I will let you know that, and perhaps Director McMahon can speak to some of the trends or Manager Burton.
Mayor, and I just like to point out at the front end of the discussions that the commission's having with the counties moving forward with a 3.5% COLA, and the state's moving forward with 4% COLA to maintain the progress that we've been able to make. We would hope that we might land close to this. But I think it's important, and the director mentioned, Danielson mentioned the progress that we've made in our ability to recruit and retain people, and Director McMahon, it's okay with you, speak briefly to that.
Sure, thank you. Mayor and Commissioners, we have done a lot of great work with your support and City Manager's support and Director Danielson's support of attracting and retaining really quality employees. As you know, 3.5 years ago, we were riding the struggle bus and trying to retain and attract employees. We were really short-staffed, lots of turnover. In the last year, we have stabilized greatly. We still have pockets of employee professions, I guess, where we're still struggling to find quality applicants, primarily in our accountant position and our engineering positions. But other than that, we've been able to really bolster our pools in terms of applicants and retain those employees. So we've made great strides. We've had a lot of making up to do with our cost of living adjustments over the last 3 years. And so the 5%, the 4%, and hopefully we can keep on that trajectory to remain competitive with the county, the state. The state, what they have done is they have a 4% increase as a COLA or a 1.5% or $1.50 an hour rate increase. And where that threshold, the break off of that is the break even is about 70 to 73,000. So anyone making over 70 something thousand will get the 4%, which equates to a higher percentage if you make less than that. So that's, what we again are competing with and needing to keep pace with. So your consideration of continuing the hard decisions about supporting our employees in the budget and the COLA, of course, I would greatly appreciate.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you. Please.
question.
Yeah.
Just a question, looking ahead to next budget cycle. I know that it does appear there's going to be an increase in revenue from taxes. My slight concern prior to really looking at the budget in depth is if we're trying to maintain the budget every year and accommodate increasing COLAs, the amount that we have to contribute to everything except COLA is flat and COLA keeps going up. And I'm trying to figure out how we don't keep finding ourselves in a position of having to cut operating costs every single year in order to accommodate a COLA. So do we have sort of a long-term plan of how to address that so that we're not constantly asking departments to cut operations in order to accommodate this?
Go ahead.
Mayor, I think the only way that we can address that is at the state level that limits us to the growth rate of half the rate of inflation over the last 3 years average. So, and I know that there's a committee looking at it. I'm not quite sure what will come out of that, but the math is easy when you know you can only grow at half the rate of inflation, and everything that we purchase and all the people that we employ grows at a faster rate of the rate of inflation. So the challenge really is the law that governs us at the state legislature.
Just given that we may not be able to change that right away. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality, but it is a reality we're under. And again, perhaps today is not the day to answer that question, but looking forward so that we don't keep finding ourselves in this position of having $247,000 over, and we're looking at many hundreds of $1,000s in requests. It would be great to have the sort of bigger picture discussion of how we're going to handle that going forward.
Yeah, and I would just say at the front end of the discussion, the 247 is money that's not spent.
Yes.
And the city commission's done a really good job in terms of your cash reserves. I mean, this is a healthy budget, and it's a conservative budget. So I think that just from revenue in, expenditures out, adequate cash reserves for cash flow and other rainy day situations, you're starting out with a pretty strong budget. Challenges moving forward, exactly what Commissioner Reed's talking about. Is it sustainable? We need to engage the legislature, the league, etc., on educating those policymakers on the challenges that we face, primarily at the local level.
Thank you, Manager Burton. And I might also add, Mayor and Commission, that that is something that I consider. And it when we first came to the commission a couple of years ago asking for a 5% COLA, that was on the tail of having only a 2 that we really fought really hard to get the prior year, and then having several years of 0 to maybe 1%. And so the conversations back then were, we can't rectify this in 1 year. It's going to take a few years so that we can hopefully get to where our wages are competitive with the state and the county. And so I think I am hoping that things will level off with inflation. I know that asking for these high COLAs are really unprecedented. If you look historically at asking for COLAs of 4, 5, 6%, but we're in unprecedented times right now as well. And we can't continue to use cash reserves to fund ongoing operations. But the City of Helena is growing. Our tax base is expanding. And that is something that I consider as that will be beneficial, so that we don't have to continue to cut costs. But when we ask folks to recommend their budget, they come to the table with a lot of their wish lists as well. And then we have to always have, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a tight budget season or not, every year you have to whittle that wish list down based on the priorities for what the city really wants to move forward with in the next fiscal year. So part of that scaling back of some of those operating costs was to say, okay, that would be a nice to have, but you know what, I'd rather have compensation for employees than I would this shiny object over here, to lack of better terms for that. So each year presents different challenges, and I think as we go forward, we're going to continue to have challenges to fund, especially because of the formula that we have for property tax revenues. But I, along with Manager Burton and Director McMahon, do recommend that the Commission strongly consider on the trajectory that we've made ground so far with compensating our employees, and not fall back again to the point where we're struggling to find anybody to even apply for our jobs.
Thank you.
Manager Burton, is there anything else you want at this point as far as discussion from the Commission or direction from the Commission on this? Or
no, I think this is a great reintroduction to the prior meeting.
Next slide. So we did also talk about with the Human Resources Director about how to compensate our temporary staff. And I think a strong recommendation that came forward was to propose that the temporary staff receive the same COLA percent as permanent staff, but start that effective January 1st. That way they can move into their recruiting year and not have to adjust wages in mid-season for those employees. Most of those folks don't start until May. So it's, May and June. So it's not, I don't think that we need to budget for that in this fiscal year. It'll just be more of an impact in the next fiscal year. So that was the recommendation that we would like to move forward with in our budget for temporary staff. And next slide, please. And then the last things for the commission to consider as far as general government type of decisions is their contributions to local nonprofits and also funding some of the programs that we have for the city, such as our renewable energy loan program and our sidewalk program. Again, historically about those community donations, aside from the ARPA savings contributions, right around 30 to 36,000 a year, the commission can make a decision to fund out of cash reserves. And that is all I have at this point. Next slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
So enough of mine. But comments or questions from the commission? Questions? Director Danielson, you see what happened when you explained so well? You get us quiet.
So Mayor, I know that we will be coming back to the commission for some decisions on fundings.
Do you have any public comments on this stuff? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment on mine.
Next up, we have Ms. Danae Claiborne to present her budgets and the budget of the commission.
Doing double duty here, Mr. Mayor.
That's okay. We estimated another 10 minutes. Should be done.
I appreciate your confidence. Thank you to Director Danielson. As you well know, Mayor and Commission, I'm Danae Claiborne. I'm the clerk of the commission, city clerk. And this is our budget, I will say, on behalf of the commission. Requests that I've heard from you personally to add to our budget this year, as well as the requests that I've made for the budget this year. Just a brief overview in this slide. It talks mainly to some of the significant changes we'll see and budget impacts we'll see for this fiscal year. Notably, we have requested additional computer equipment and cell phones for the commission. This serves two purposes. It actually is a cybersecurity risk for you all to not be operating off of city maintained product. And so that takes care of a huge concern that ITNS has spoken to me about. It also is a cost of doing business in a modern era. As you all know, you're very often sitting with a screen in front of you now in order to do a meeting online or in person, even in the chambers. So we want to be able to provide you those tools. We have this year in our software budget, which at first glance appears to have increased dramatically. What that reflects is an increase in cost absorbed from other departments, with the intent between absorbing those costs from other departments on software and licensing was really an efficiency thing. It was about making it clearer for department heads on how they should pay for access to the data management system and files that the city is using. It helps with corralling some of those costs. We can manage them a little easier through one department's budget rather than putting that burden upon the department heads to make those decisions year to year and account for those. There have been some increases in other softwares. We have been informed this past year that the agenda software the city's been using for many years now, well over a decade, is being retired, I guess we'll say. It's quite old. And the company informed us of this past year that they could move us into the new modern agenda software. It's a necessary product in order for the city to get provide the same level of service to this constituency for the meetings. So I've been working with the city manager's office on that project, and we'll be transferring our current process and the current agenda software into this new version. there is a significant cost, unfortunately, as with all softwares these days, in transferring us into this new modern city manager.
It's just said, Ms. Claiborne, I think the centralization of that in your office with the software contract payments between all the departments now will allow us to better manage that with the vendor as well, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, city manager. It's very easy for things to slip through the cracks when we're trying to disperse those requests that one single budget line item for like a director Leland, who's got thousands of line items for him to manage up one piece and component. It's much easier for me to manage that licensing fee and cost to absorb that into my budget. We'll get a little bit more into that in detail in the next couple of slides, but this also will reflect the decision by the commission to direct fund should the June ballot measure for the local government review pass. So we've not only placed in the contracted services fund the cost for the general election should the June primary ballot measure pass. That's an additional $20,000, and then $57,000 was the amount that the commission decided to direct fund for the local government review process. Those funds, as I've talked to the director about, excuse my grammar, those funds would essentially be absorbed back into cash reserves should that local government review measure not pass in June on that ballot. So this just goes into a little bit more detail in notable expenditures in FY24. One of the main goals we had in our office was that we do use a lot of software. We've been trying to modernize per the commission's request many of our processes, public outreach, the management of the public records, and through training internally, we've managed to drop our professional service hours that we rely upon outside vendors to provide maintenance and training. We've done internal training with our staff, and we dropped that number from 7,500 in the previous fiscal year down to 1,500. We don't need the outside help as much anymore. Is the main takeaway from that item. So that's a big deal for us. We're a small group, but we work really hard together to provide the level of service we do to the entire city. Technical upgrades, we mentioned that the commission will be working off the secure products that the city will now provide for you for meeting, the online meetings. The one meeting agenda software is the one that I had mentioned earlier. It's a necessary tool for us to offer the digital agendas to the public and for you all. That is a significant increase, about 75% from the previous cost. It was a shared product with the county, which is no longer available to us, which accounts for quite a bit of that increase. Do you have any questions on any of that?
Is the county going to be sharing this one or no?
No, unfortunately. Thank you, Commissioner Dean, Mayor. Unfortunately, the way the breakout is for the cost between those two, we're now responsible for our own product. The county will be responsible for their own. So there's no more cost sharing there. We did explore that option though, as part of the research leading up to it. Any other questions? Purchase services, due to stabilization, most notably at the city manager level, we've been able to reduce costs on contracted services that were reflected in previous years. We're going to continue to focus internally at the clerk's office for extra trainings to support the software that we're using for the various systems and projects for the city. So hopefully keep dropping that number even more that I referred to earlier. There were significant increases in this budget for various member dues organizations that the city belongs to, notably the NLCT and the MLCT, League of Cities and Towns. Those costs did go up to reflect the services that they provide to municipal governments. So I think that was unanimously supported by the board. Those costs have been absorbed by the commission budget as well.
I also know it was unanimously supported by all the members of the league too.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Dean. That's actually what I intended to say. This again would reflect the ballot measure and those costs, which amount to about $77,000. Again, should that ballot measure not pass in June, those costs would just be reabsorbed. Any questions here? Fixed and internal charges. We did see a minor increase last year as we expanded the records room into part of Sheila's space. She was not happy. So we moved in a little bit. So
We haven't been able to hire anyone to fill that space.
we took over a little extra space in the building, but this year we've seen no other significant increases there. The hope is with the projects we've been working on internally in the clerk's office, that space for the records room won't actually be as, let's see, how do I want to phrase this? As needed, I guess, because we're ultimately, the goal is to put everything into our record archiving system in a digital format. We've made a ton of progress. As you all know, this past week, we launched our new resolution and ordinance page. I'm proud of it and the work that the staff has done. I think the city attorney's office has been an amazing partner working through that process. Until you are immersed in the records project every day, I could wax poetically about it and bore everyone in this room. But the ability for both staff, the commission, and citizens to be able to keyword search like Google for records that the city has been collecting dust with for decades, over 100 years in some cases, that's a pretty big deal, and that's ultimately our goal. So all the dollars that we request in the city commission office and the clerk budget is going towards that goal every day. So with that, that's all I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioners? It comes from the public on this.
I do not have any public comment online, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Clerk Claiborne.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Next up, we have the city manager's office budget presentation. And you want to.
That's right. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's get set up here real quick. All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Reinhardt. I'm Executive Assistant to Manager Burton, and I will be presenting the budget for the city manager's office today. So within our office, we have 3 focus areas: administration, which includes City Manager Burton and myself, executive to the city manager. We also have public information, which is our public information officer, Jake Garson. And then also grants administration, which is headed by our grants administrator, Amanda Owens. And as you can see, in fiscal year 24, we adopted a budget of $714,774 with a fiscal year 24 projected budget of $741,527. You'll note the difference here, and I put a note at the bottom. You can kind of read it, it's really small. The difference here is due to approximately $21,000 in vacancy savings that we did not realize. We were one of the fortunate departments that remained fully staffed for fiscal year 24. Not to brag, but we're proud of it. So this is the difference you see between what was adopted and what is projected for this fiscal year. You will also see the fiscal year 25 preliminary budget is coming in right around our projected spending for this fiscal year at around $743,490, or excuse me, $743,490. Notable expenditures include citywide software funded by the city manager's office, such as the public engagement software for Be Heard Helena, as well as Archive Social, which acts as a backup archive for content posted through the city's social media accounts.
we touched on this last year, but I'll just make a note of it for the public. We are required by law to archive our social media content as it is considered public record and under the Freedom of Information Act. One notable change from last year, as Clerk Claiborne already addressed, is that we previously held the federal form builder in our department, which was I can't remember the cost exactly, but I think it was around $6,000, and that has since shifted to the clerk's office, which reduced our software to a little bit of amount there. We also anticipate several PC upgrades in our office, with staff transitioning to a laptop docking station setup. And I'm sure you guys are aware of those. No state has gone to that since COVID. Just a lot easier for us on the go to access work when we're at conferences or not at our desk itself. Finally, our travel and meeting expenses, as well as conference dues, have increased to accommodate the Montana League of Cities and Towns annual conference. This includes both the expected costs associated with staff traveling to the conference, as well as lodging while attending the conference. You'll also note or remember that the City of Helena was the host city this last year, and which meant that we didn't have to cover costs for travel or lodging, but those are some slight increases you'll see in our conference fund. And with that concludes everything in the city manager's budget, but unless you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
Danielson got a question for you.
Thank you. I wanted to expand on Ms. Reinhardt's comment about not realizing their vacancy savings. So over the course of the last few years, there had been so many vacancies in various general government departments that we actually budgeted for vacancy savings. And she's lucky she didn't have any of those in her office, but I will note that in fiscal 25, I've removed that adjustment from most departments, with the exception of the police and the fire department. I still have some vacancy saving adjustments in those departments due to turnover in those departments. Hopefully they won't realize as much, but it has tended to be the reality and continues to be the reality in those departments. So that is one adjustment that is not in most departments in fiscal 25.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments for Ms. Reinhardt? Or Finn's mom? Okay, we'll have City Attorney Doctor. Is that it? Or you?
I believe that I'm next, Mayor.
City Attorney Danielson.
Is it, are you next or me? I think it's me.
No, go ahead. You are. I wrote down finance.
What's next? You. Okay, that's what I wrote down.
I was joking. I was
Sorry about that. Okay, thank you. Again, Mayor, Commission, I'm presenting the Finance Department's budget. Our division, Finance Division, is made up of administration and budget, which is myself and 2 budget analysts. I did have the project manager in my division. That position is moving over to transportation services to help them with the MPO program. So I'm very excited for him for the new opportunity, but very sad to have him leave my team. Great employee. The next is the accounting division, and that's the controller and his accounting staff. And then we have 4 staff down in the utility customer service office, and they support all of the utility billing and licensing for the city and manage hundreds of phone calls every single day. And I've sat down there and glad that I don't get that many phone calls every day. So just as a recap for finance, budgeted about 1.78 million. I'm projecting that we'll spend about 1.737 million. That's primarily due to some vacancy savings that I have. I still have not been able to fill the account position in my office. And for fiscal 25, projected at 1.725 million, and that's largely due to the project manager position leaving my division. Notable expenditures for fiscal 25. I have budgeted about $14,000 for continuing education for 12 staff. That includes myself. I do have required certifications that I need to maintain in order to keep my role as finance director. I also have the controller that's wanting to pursue a CPFO certification. That's a equivalent of I don't know if it's equivalent, but it's in the realm of a CPA, but just for government finance officers. And then also leadership training and budget and accounting training for my staff. I too have additional computer upgrades budgeted in my department. I have a few staff upstairs that have not been able to transition to a laptop yet. So working to get all of my staff onto laptops and doing it every year so that we can manage that. We do have distribution charges that we're still budgeting for, utility billing, $112,000 to print and mail our utility bills. Yes, Commissioner Dean.
So when we are able to move to the online system, do we think that'll be the next fiscal year?
Thank you, Commissioner Dean and Mayor. We are going to kick off the implementation hopefully in August. It is expected to take a full year, if not more, in order to go live with that section. So we will have we will go live in fiscal 26 with that, but probably not at July 1st. We'll probably be moving in the first quarter of fiscal year 26. And then the hope is then to have a lot of folks transition from paper billing to electronic billing. Finally, huh?
Just a follow-up to Commissioner Dean's question, because I have the same one. Are we going to, when we get fully onboarded with the new software, is it going to be required to be electronic billing, or is it you have to opt in to electronic billing?
That's a policy decision from the commission. At this time, we're just going to have people opt in. We do have people that enjoy coming down to the office and having a conversation with the staff down there with their paper bill. That they still bring cash or they still bring a check and want to submit that. So I imagine that we'll continue that unless the commission makes a policy decision to move all electronic. But I suspect that I'm hoping that at least 40 to 50% of our customers will move to online, and then as we go each year, that number will only grow, and then that cost for printing all of those bills will hopefully eventually go away. And it's going to be a great savings. We're paying more in software costs, but it'll be great savings from having printed documents. So I'm really excited about it. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Danielson, with regards to online payments, will that also include, I got two questions. Will it include automatic payments?
Yes.
Okay. And along with that, I guess it might be too early to tell estimated cost savings for people, for the state or the city to switch to online payments instead of.
We did that analysis as far as what it costs per bill. I don't have that in front of me, but it is a pretty significant cost per bill. It's somewhere in like the $6 range, I think, per bill to send out. So it'll be a pretty big difference. One of the things that we're also going to have to bring to the commission for discussion, as well as a cap on allowing folks to use a credit card. As we do move more onto electronic billing and online, more and more people will want to use their credit card and get their points. That actually costs the city money. for doing that. So we'll have a discussion with the commission about placing a cap where they can use their debit card or they can have a pull from their checking. But after a certain threshold, we'll want to put a cap on having people use their credit card to limit the credit card fees.
What is our processing fee?
Well, it varies. We have, I would say over a dozen merchant agreements throughout the city. It's something that I've tried to rein in over the last couple of years. However, software companies make it really difficult because they have a specific merchant provider contract that they work with. And when you sign up for that software, you're also signing up for their merchant provider. So, we have merchant providers for Civic Center, for the city, for the golf course, for transit, for parking. Almost every single division in the city has a different merchant provider. So I can't give you what it costs because it varies across division. I know with Tyler Technologies, we're moving to, it'll be 1.998% plus $1.25 per transaction for credit card fees, but it'll be a dollar for an electronic check, but the ACH pull won't cost the city anything other than our ACH fees with the bank. So our primary promotion is to go with automatic pulls from people's checking accounts. And that kind of led into our what we're currently paying for credit card fees through the utility billing department, and then we have contracted audit and actuary fees of $80,000 this next fiscal year. A lot of our accomplishments in this last fiscal year is one, we went live with our Tyler Technologies platform for the general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable. Our staff in my department have been diligently helping and working with departments throughout the city with their payments modules, their accounts payable modules, and their cash receipts. So they've been really working very hard, and I've been pretty proud of all the work that went into that. And we're just working through some hiccups right now. And I think for the most part, people are happy with the new system. Some people may feel like it's a little bit, different. But I think once everybody gets used to it, it'll be pretty smooth. So currently we're about 70% complete with our payroll. That's taken a lot of hard work. Our goal for going live with payroll is still July 1st with our time and attendance keeping and then payroll processing. The HR module will have some delay after that, just due to time and training, being able to get that on board. And then downstairs in our utility office, they're about 90% complete with licensing. They're just waiting on the Tyler Tech to do to finalize their conversion for their licensing information. So really a lot of work from a lot of the staff. So I'm very proud of all the work that's gone into that. In accounting, we were successful in filing our audit on time and coming out with a clean audit. So that was a big lift, and pretty happy about that. And onboarding a new controller and treasurer, Andrew Kruzik. So I've been very pleased with having him on board. And I onboarded my 2 budget analysts, and they're Cammie McLean is sitting here tonight. So I've been very pleased with their progress and helping me with the budget. I just couldn't even do it without them. So I'm in debt to you, Cammie. We've been working on new procedures and workflow trainings and getting our jobs done. So it's been a good year, a busy year. More of that coming up in the next fiscal year. Still continuing to refine our processes with the new software, going live with our payroll, going live with our licensing. We have our continued goal to meet our deadlines in accounting. We want to implement some new banking initiatives that we'll be bringing to the commission to review at an admin meeting when we're ready. We're trying to recruit an accounting specialist right now. We've been very unsuccessful in recruiting an accountant level positions. So we modified that position to accounting specialist positions in hopes that we can train that position up to be an accountant. So we've actually started interviews. So I'm pretty happy that we've had a few candidates apply for that position. In the budget arena, we just want to continue to our outreach with our departments and developing those relationships and starting in with them and helping their forecasting their rates and long-term analysis. And let's see, I also have some policies that I need to present to the city manager and get his review and then bring them to the commission for your consideration as well.
Yes, that's one comment, one question. Not during budget season because we're really busy, but I think it would be entertaining for everybody to, if possible, have a presentation of what the finance software looked like before with the green screen, MS-DOS. And really, so I think it really is a little for people to understand what it was. And with the procurement policy, super excited to see that, and that will, I assume, be a citywide policy. That's great.
And thank you, Mayor and Commissioner Reed. I know that the Transportation Services Division has drafted a procurement policy as well. Most of our grants are now requiring that the city have its own individual procurement policy. And so we're looking on capitalizing on that draft and incorporating some of the other procurement items needed in that, and then bring it before the city manager and then to the commission for formal adoption of that procurement policy. So I'm happy about the work that's been done. We just need to fine tune it and get it to the end result for you to review. That's all I have for my division. I do have in your packets some of the other administrative budgets. I don't have them on my presentation, but I have them presented here just for your information. Just our general, bond payment fund, our lighting district funds are in here. I do have a copier revolving fund and then some estimates for the liability insurances and health insurances in here as well. I will draw your attention to Fund 340, which is it's a sidewalk improvement district fund, and there's a lingering cash balance in there of a little over $40,000. Right now I have it listed as a transfer out just because I wanted to remind myself to bring it to your attention. And I did speak to the city manager about this several months ago, and it's just now come up again that I will be bringing to the city manager the proposal to close out some inactive funds. This is one of those inactive funds. It was a sidewalk fund. I did do a pretty lengthy reconciliation of sidewalk funds, and there's another fund that has a deficit. I think it's just the fact that the funds got crossed when they were either loaning out or taking back money. And so I'll be bringing to the commission the resolution to shore up these funds, get them closed out. And it was a recommendation from our auditors that we close these inactive funds out. So that's just in there for that information. I'll be bringing that actually this fiscal year to close out that fund. It's a little complicated to understand, but I'm hoping to have more information on that when I bring the resolution at an admin meeting for review. Yes, Commissioner G.
It's a health and safety program. Is that work comp?
I'm sorry, what?
The health and safety program fund. Is that
That's actually our health insurance.
Any other questions? You done, Director Danielson?
I am. Thank you. And now I will turn it over to City Attorney Becky Doctor.
Thank you, Becky Doctor, City Attorney. And I will do three things in this presentation.
I'll first give you a little overview of what each of our divisions do. I'll tell you then what our goals are, what our accomplishments and our goals are for the last year, accomplishments this year for goals, and then also just give you an outline of the very minimal budget requests that we had over the base budget that you just saw. So the next slide. I didn't do that for the record. I didn't figure that out. That was someone else who's smarter than I am. So 3 divisions. We have the civil division, the criminal division, and then the victim services division. The next slide. I'll go through each one of these and what we do. The city attorney, oh, sorry, this is not something I saw before. Oh, these are just the numbers for you. She forgot the numbers, so I inserted them in here for her. I like words, but she likes numbers. Slide, please. Overall increase 3.41%, and you'll see that'll correlate to the requests that we have in the final presentation, final slide here. And which are the office expansion resulting in $8,000 approximately in increased rent. That'll depend largely upon the county is vacating some of its office space right next to where our offices are. It's more conducive to a safer environment, storage space for sensitive documents, confidential documents that we can actually lock up. And actually it gets some people, we've got 3 people in one office, 2 people in another office, and it allows some people to actually have an office space instead of, on top of each other. Reduce Carpel software expenditures as well. We budgeted for Carpel, which is our case management system. And you'll see one of the accomplishments for this past year was to go completely digital in our case management, which was a really exciting thing, which will result in some savings for supplies that we will realize next year. But so far, this is a very real decrease in our expenditures because we had budgeted an amount to do more civil case management. That didn't actually work out. So Carpel did decrease the amount that they charge us every year, and it's $4,200 as opposed to over $10,000 a year for that. So that's a savings that we had. I like how Sheila put these together because in my mind it justified the increase in rent because we did decrease the Carpel software expenditure every year. So next slide. So these are the victim services and the number that you see here. Part of what we are asking for is a reclassification of the victim services position. She's been in that position now for 6 years. And when it first began, it was a concept. It wasn't something that we knew or understood in this office, the impact that position could have. Because it has evolved now into something that has just for numbers, because people like numbers when we're talking about budgets. There were 50% of our cases, partner family member assault cases, that we had to dismiss because victims were too uncomfortable to come through the court system to testify. Those had to be dropped because there was nobody showing up as a witness. Now we drop only less than 15%, and that's over the course of 6 years. And we attribute that largely to Nicole's work because she works with victims from the time of the crime all the way through court and even thereafter. One of the accomplishments you'll see is just the impact she's had has been illustrated to others across the community who are now reaching out to her to do some other victim services work. And we think we can do that because her position is a federal grant funded position. And we have a match that we have to provide in order to get that federal grant. So we're justified to allow her to actually work with other victims of crimes that perhaps actually haven't been through the court system. So we really think the work she does is valuable. It has evolved over time, and reclassification is worth it because of what she does and the value she provides in that position now. Not just her, but that position provides to the city. So.
Just a quick question. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment. Your dismissal rate in that short amount of time is really impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
15% ever is fantastic for that type of case. So I applaud the work she's been doing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'll pass that on to you. So these are the outside of base budget requests. We kind of already went through some of it. The civil and criminal divisions, the office expansion is the rent. That's what we're talking about with the up $8,000 increase. The upgrade computer program for trial evidence. What that is we have to do video editing, and it takes specific program to do video editing in a way that the court allows. We had to upgrade our program because the one we were using had a Chinese server, and it was no longer being allowed by our IT. So, and so we had it's a policy by our IT that we cannot use those programs. So we found another one, and that's part of the budget as well. The victim services, the separate budget portion is really for the match requirement. We don't always know what that is because we don't know the result of a grant application until May. We did apply for that grant again this year in January, and we hope to get the majority of it covered, but our match will be a 25% match over and above that grant. So you'll have more information on that when we come to you in June with the preliminary budget, but until then, we won't really know how much that'll be.
With that grant, is there ever opportunity to expand to more FTE to support those services?
Mayor, Commissioner Dean, thank you for that question. We actually have had a long-term goal of expanding those services, especially because there have been some discussions at the court for another judge and as soon as you have more volume, you have less capacity to serve the people that are there. And so we hope that could be a way that we can expand the program. But I don't know if that means that'll correlate to more funding or if it'll just mean the same amount and we'd have to absorb that here. And then the last one we have there is the reclassification of the victim services position because it's evolved as I described. Next one. So this is just going a little bit into what we do, and I will go very briefly into this. I think you know and see the interaction that you have with me and Amy Hockelock, the assistant attorney, but we also were able to, in the past year, add deputy city attorney who has increased the capacity in both the criminal division and the civil division because he has trained in both. But you can see here all the things, and we're a small but mighty little department. Like I think of the other ones that you'll hear the departments from. And so I don't need to read these for you. You can get those. Go ahead. The accomplishments in our office in the last year for the civil division, we, like the city manager's office, have been able to consolidate our computer needs for our office, meaning that we've been able to get rid of some of our desktop computers and get laptops because some of our attorneys had two computers because they had an office down at the courtroom, an office up here. We instead have a laptop that we're able to take to and fro. And that was allowed us to minimize our computer needs and actually make it a lot more convenient for everyone. We were able to upgrade some safety measures for our office by just moving things around. We worked with the facilities department to get a door that we could see outside of. We lock our doors now. There have been some interactions, unfortunately, with some folks in the city attorney's office, and we are hoping to even expand those safety measures even more by getting more office space, so that we can move people away from the door and get them in different offices. So we were able to do that this year and hope to do more of that in the future. Amended several code provisions, implemented policies that were to replace old, outdated policies, hired a deputy city attorney, like I already mentioned, and these are just a number of them that I wanted to highlight. Our goals for the next year then is to occupy better office space. Oops, just go there. That's okay. And create policy, working with the Helena Police Department and the County Attorney's Office on responding to public information requests. City Clerk's office, our office, Police Department gets tons of requests for public information, for police reports, for crash reports, and we don't necessarily have a coordinated effort on how to respond to those. We've been working with the county attorney's office to trying to come up with some coordinated response to those. That includes collecting fees for requesting those records. And we're working on that and hope to get that implemented this year. And then just develop knowledge, expertise in-house, and that's just through the training. Now you can go ahead. Criminal, our criminal division is a misdemeanor prosecution division. And I'm, again, like the civil one, I'm not going to go through this, but I just highlight we prosecute hundreds of cases per year, and I would say probably more like thousands. So it's a busy office, in court every single week, as Nikki knows, and we do a really good job in trying to work things out where we can and prosecute where we need to. So the accomplishments and goals, we transitioned to an entirely paperless case file system, Carpel. We had been doing a hybrid before that, and we now are to a completely paperless, and that's been, like I said, it's going to save in some supplies, it saves in time, and it's going to save in just record keeping itself, space and all of that. That's exciting for us. I think I've already mentioned many of these, except perhaps, and this is something that came through you anyway, we received grant funding for an intern for prosecution of DUIs, and we've hired we've chosen an intern, and that person will start and be here over the summer and help with DUI prosecutions. The goals for the next year is working with the community-wide team to implement a risk assessment system to assess where there's repeated offender rates. And that's working with the Friendship Center, which is exciting, and some other county and state groups to implement this assessment project. It's really exciting to do and to understand, but it's complicated. And if you have questions about it, the Friendship Center just sent out some information on this assessment process that we will use, and it's a pretty neat assessment and risk system that we will hope to work on in our office as well. And then continue to apply for and receive funding for enhancing our works. And that's just our VOCA grant and the DUI task force and anything else we can identify that might help enhance our work. I think that's it for the victim services. This one, I'm not going to read this for you, but basically the summary is the person in this position, Nicole Doyle, guides victims through beginning to end of the process, and even sometimes still keeps contacts with the victims afterward. And it's been a really neat thing for me to see and witness. She's gotten paintings and thank you cards and kids from victims that she's worked with when she was first here coming in and saying hi to her. It's a really neat thing to see and witness from our office. There aren't too many victim services groups or victim services like ours in the state of Montana, and I consider one of ours the best. So I think there will be others who try to replicate what we've done here.
Josh did.
Right. And that's all I have.
Comments or questions for Attorney Doctor? Any public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
Okay. Human Resources. Director McMahon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Nan. I will be presenting on the human resources budget for fiscal year 25. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. We adopted a budget last year at little over $572,000. We're pretty much on track to be within that budget. We have a reduced preliminary budget for fiscal year 25 of $571,165,000. The HR office is comprised of 4 FTE, myself as the director. We have an HR generalist, an HR specialist, and an HR admin assistant. The notable expenditures for 24 and 25 is we continue to contract with CMS on our pay plan development and market wage studies and those sorts of things. So that is probably one of the biggest expenses beyond just the foundational budget that we have. One of the reductions we will have is we're sunsetting the legacy recruitment module. So you might be familiar with what we call Civic HR, our new ERP system. When we get that up and running, we'll take over for that Civic Center and we'll integrate into the new HR and payroll modules, which will be really nice and improve efficiencies. For the most part, what you're seeing here is a status quo budget. Last year we had some carryovers. We've had some undone pay plan work with CMS that we won't need to carry over this year. And we also had a carryover last year for the HR office remodel, which we are so pleased with. It was so wonderful. Yeah, to be able to have private conversations in a more intimate kind of cleaner, classier space has just been wonderful for our employees and for our staff. So appreciate the support on that. Let's see. So some of the accomplishments from the Human Resources Office, we did, with your support, provided a 4% COLA and sustained competitive insurance and benefits. We did conduct a market wage analysis and did reclassify and change several positions that were lagging behind the market last year. You might remember, as a result of the compensation market plan, we moved whoever of the employees' positions were not at 88% of market at step 3. We moved those to the next pay grade that reflected at least 80% of market at step 3. So we were able to make some strides in moving more toward a market-based pay. We stabilized the workforce. Our turnover and vacancy rates has reduced and retained. We are really pleased with that. We implemented an online safety training platform through MMIA. It's a new platform that we basically piloted for MMIA. It's worked out really well. In partnership with the police department records, 911, City Attorney Doctor was also involved in these, chiefs, department heads in successfully negotiating their collective bargaining agreements. Some took a little longer than others, but we got it done. I'm happy about that. Along with the public information officer, we were very involved in launching the new city intranet. So we have some more robust pages in our intranet. We're continuing to plan and implement the ERP HR module, as Dr. Danielson mentioned earlier. The biggest heavy lift right now has been getting payroll running, and hopefully we can have some smooth conversions in our payroll. But it's taken a whole team effort. It's a lot of, policy interpretation, benefits, pay codes, all the things. So we've been working really hard in that particular endeavor, and we look forward to continuing that project with the HR modules, hopefully summer. As you know, you have approved updated many city personnel policies. So we continue to work on that endeavor. We have had some turnover in the HR office, and anytime you have turnover, it's an opportunity to take a look at your operations and dig a little deeper into seeing where the efficiencies lie and where improvements can be made. So we've been doing a bit of that, re-engineering some processes within our office over the last several months. And as I said earlier, our recruitment pools, our applicant pools have significantly increased over the last year, I would say.
On the ERP implementation, will pay stubs move on to a digital format for everyone?
Mayor, commissioners, eventually, yes. We have a time and attendance module, and it's called employee access. And so the employee access functionality is probably the one that I'm most looking forward to, where people can access through authentication, of course, their personal information from their phones or through a kiosk. So we're working right now actively making sure employees all have a kiosk that they can access their time, their requests, their W-4s, their vacation time, all those things, can also access them if all goes well from their phone. So yes, I'm excited about that.
Any other comments from Director McMahon? Oh, are you done?
Almost.
Oh.
I'll be quick.
No, take your time.
Fiscal year goals for the Office of Human Resources. Again, we strive to be the employer of choice. So all of this is foundational on our employee base and what we can do out of our offices throughout the city to support our employees to be the employer of choice. We'll continue to be diligent on offering competitive pay and benefits. Again, implementing our HR module, including what I mentioned earlier, that employee access. Implement a market-based pay plan. We've done the market analysis. We're looking at the actual structure of our pay plan now. It's in the preliminary stages. You'll be hearing more about that, I would imagine. And then develop initiatives to provide a sustainable, stable workforce. In that pay plan, we have been discussing through the compensation committee, deliberate succession planning and career ladder opportunities for our employees. So we're looking at implementing that into our pay structure. You'll be, again, hearing more about that. Developing mentorship and internship opportunities. We've had a couple directors go to, for example, Montana Tech and Butte College to try to garner some interest, especially in these areas where we're really struggling with our accountants and engineers, to see what we can do to get people in the door and succeeding through, the ranks, I guess, better for those positions at the city. And then professional development training opportunities throughout the city. And then, as you know, we attended as a core cohort the Racial Equity and Leadership Institute. We had a core team with the manager and the mayor and the city attorney. And I have started to implement policies and procedures surrounding those principles and ideals. And we have a meeting, in fact, next week to introduce some other initiatives in that regard. And then lastly, support a safe, healthy workplace for all employees. It feels like almost every meeting I'm in has some kind of a safety component. Whether it's one of our trucks getting in an accident or somebody getting hurt in transit or something like that, partnering with MMIA to get them into doing some work with us. We've partnered with them quite a bit in the last several months on some of their new programs. So those are some of the high level goals that we have in our office. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Comments or questions for the director? Do we have any public comments on this topic? Oh, thank you, Director McMahon. We will be moving on to municipal court manager. Manager Johnson, you have the floor.
Yeah, last but not least, I'm Nikki Johnson from Helena Municipal Court Commissioners, Mayor. Nice to see you this evening. Pretty simple and straightforward. The overall increase of the 4% was from salaries and benefits. That's basically what our increase was from. Our maintenance and operations were status quo. We maintained a very steady budget. As my budget manager sitting right here by me. I'm very proud of our staff retention too. I have one, my lead clerk has been there 25 years and I have two deputy clerks at 21 and 20 years. My anniversary of 9 years is Monday. And then my youngest, I'll quote him, is 6 years. So we've maintained a great staff. We have great work environment. We all enjoy coming to work every day. So that's a good thing. One of our goals in this, or one of our work in progress for this summer is we're going to launch e-filing, which I know the city attorney's office is excited for. That will provide all attorneys in the city, state, out and outside of the state to be able to electronically file all their documents to our court. That'll help with security issues and just more a more stable way to pass on documents. The other issue that we'll be working on and continue to work on is our courtroom security. We as a court staff are so thankful for being behind the glass and all our locked doors, but our judge is still pretty vulnerable. We were able to install a locked door system, which is has been worked out great. She's got a little switch at her desk that opens and shuts locks the door automatically for her. But there's still the security in the lobby and just in the courtroom. We do have an officer that comes in during court, which is very helpful. And he's out in the lobby during open court times, just as a presence. And we've noticed a difference in just the community in that area during that time. But we would like to continue to look at further security measures in the future. But other than that, that is about all I have, unless you have any questions on line items in my budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. In terms of that, the security measures that you're speaking of, is there a panic button or anything like that?
So Commissioner Shurtleff, Mayor, we have a panic button on the phone. So she can press that and it goes to dispatch, and then it goes to the police department, which is obviously right there. And then we are also a panic button. I mean, you could scream down the hall pretty easily. But minutes, maybe a minute. Yeah. Yeah.
The panic button goes to our detectives, which are just around the corner. It also goes to all of that. So it's a matter of
minute, yeah. Just getting out of their chairs and getting down the hall, which we've had them in seconds. And sometimes they can even hear something going on, and that they're so good about just walking down and checking on us. So yeah, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for manager? Any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment.
Thank you, Manager Johnson.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Discuss, nothing. Sustainability report. The audit communication director of ELIS.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. This is one of the priorities that sort of came out of the CCB and then with the commission to start to look at our energy throughout the city as far as our buildings. And so we had money set aside and then we were only able to select a few of our buildings just because of what the budget was. And this will be the first round and then we'll see how this goes and see if we want to incorporate another audit to some of our other buildings or just take what we found here and implement them on the buildings. So with that, I would turn it over to our sustainability and recycling coordinator, Miranda Griffiths.
You have to feed it.
All right. So I'm Miranda Griffiths. I'm the recycling and sustainability and recycling coordinator. I'm just going to go through quickly the report findings and implementation of our sustainability plan and audit. So in November 27th through the 30th of 2023, consultants Iconergy conducted on-site ASHRAE level 2 audits to 5 of our city facilities. And then they subcontracted with a company called Queston. They conducted solar feasibility on those same 5 buildings. And they also did an additional 5 buildings, and then they completed conceptual design for 2 of our facilities that they determined were the top facilities. So they did the audit on City County Admin, Civic Center, Law and Justice, 10 Mile, and the wastewater treatment plant. And then they looked at, for conceptual design, they looked at Bill Roberts and the wastewater treatment plant. So what is included in ASHRAE level 2 is they evaluated energy usage, equipment, and building operations. This included heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, lighting, domestic hot water, envelope, programming and process equipment, and they additionally interviewed building staff. And then from November to March, they studied utility billing and usage patterns as builds, as well as operations and maintenance plans. And then in their final report, they gave us a 42-page detailed report that looked at several energy conservation measures for all of the buildings. This looked at electrical and natural gas savings, greenhouse gas emission reductions, utility cost savings, implementation costs, as well as payback period. And then this graph up here is just a quick overview of all of those ECMs for our facilities. I'm going to go through all of them real quick. So for our City County Admin building, they identified 8. The ones that are in blue are the ones that we have already implemented or we are planning to. So for ECM 3, this was just a simple adjusting the fan schedule for occupied hours. And then we are currently in the middle of an LED lighting upgrade. We are on phase 2 with the 4th floor under contract. And then we still have the basement and 2nd and 3rd floor. And those 2 together is going to give us a projected utility savings of a little over $14,000. And then looking at the Civic Center, currently we don't have any plans to implement any of these ECMs. I think if you just look at the implementation costs and the payback period, they're fairly large for a not large utility cost savings. So something to look to in the future. For the Law and Justice Center, we are currently under contract for the boiler upgrade, and it is anticipated to be complete in September of 2024. For 10 Mile Water Treatment Plant, we are, for ECM 1, the backwash pumps, this project is anticipated to be budgeted for 2026. And then the wastewater treatment plant, ECM 4 and 5, these are anticipated to be completed in the coming fiscal years and with a very large utility savings of over $82,000. So just looking at all of the 20 to 30 some identified energy conservation measures that the consultants looked at, we have a potential savings of a little over $337,000 a year, with a little over 1,300 metric tons of CO2 emissions reductions per year. And then I wanted to look at what the potential is and then what we are actually doing. So all the ones that were outlined in blue that we are implementing, we have an actual savings of $115,000 and then a little over 400 metric tons of CO2 emission reduction. And then moving on to our feasibility study. So that was done for 10 buildings, with 2 of them being selected for a conceptual design. And really what was the conceptual design is they looked at ground mounted or roof mounted systems, sun exposure, energy consumption, operational and maintenance costs, as well as rebates and the payback period. And currently we are going to be doing a solar project at Bill Roberts Golf Course. We did have money set aside in 2023, about $240,000 for city facility solar projects that we're going to use for this. We are also going to be submitting a grant through Northwestern Energy, the USB grant, and we are hoping that they will pay for 50% of the project costs. We're in the beginning stages. We're going to be going out for that project for bid in the coming month. From initiating the project completion is anticipated to be done in about 5.5 months. So the installed cost is about $223,000, and then with the tax credits, the USB grant, all of those things, our out-of-pocket cost is looking to be at about $156,312. And then it's kind of hard to see because it's a little small, but the array would be trenched to munis, and it would be, there's a meter there, and it's going to be taking about 80% of the utility billing from these, so about a $10,000 annual energy savings per year. And then an estimated lifetime savings of $80,000 with a payback period of 18 years. So they got us a lot of really good information in this audit, so pretty cool. And then the final report is going to be available on the city's sustainability webpage. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Now that you mentioned our webpage, is it open to the public? This is really good information that I think we need to sell to the public. And I don't know how you're doing it. Maybe I need to work with Jake to get it out there, but they need to know that also. Comments?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I was like, getting to the end of the packet, not thinking much of it, and then I read the report, and I'm like, maybe this is cool. Not saying the budget was good, but this is, very, very cool. One of the things that I saw, like, amongst a lot of the buildings were similar projects that, and I know you mentioned, like, even for the Civic Center, it might not be worth the cost savings to do some of these upgrades, but is there any opportunity to maybe pursue some of the projects amongst multiple buildings, like, and be able to buy the project it out in bulk, essentially? I don't know what the right term for that is, but
Mayor Commission, yes, we will look at that. Is what we'll take out of this is if, like LED lighting, some of that stuff, if we can get a bigger scale to come into some of the smaller buildings, you look at, whatever, admin building for the transfer station. Yes, we'll look at that and see if we can bring that number down, and we'll use this as basically a master plan that we do with everything else and come up with a CCIP plan and put it in there and see where it actually comes out. And is it worth the bang for the buck, or if there's anything we can do for economy of scale?
that was gonna be my second question was, how does this get implemented into like potential CCIPs for like the relevant departments? But
Mr. Mayor, first I'd like to ask if Commissioner Logan has a question that somebody hasn't asked. Just a quick question, and I was flipping through pages while you were speaking, so forgive me if you said it, but I see the conceptual designs for solar for some of the 10, but not all of them. Were there more, or did you focus on just a few? And from that, how did you choose the golf course one?
Yes, so they gave us, they wanted to do just conceptual design for two of our best options, just because they knew what our budget was. We told them that we had the $224,000 for the two city solar loan or city facility projects, so we kind of wanted to focus on those two. They did give us a really large spreadsheet of all those 10 facilities. So if in the future we do these two and we want to go back and look down the list, that we do have that option.
If possible, it would be great if we could see that. I'd be very curious. This is really interesting and useful stuff. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
do think I have a couple of questions that have been asked. Actually, for the clerk, the I guess PowerPoint would be on the shared drive. Correct.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Logan, correct.
And then the other, at some point, I think Commissioner Shurtleff and I had an informal presentation on the concept of renewable diesel that perhaps we should hear about one day.
Yeah, one day.
Special request in the future.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have any public comments on this topic, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment.
Thank you, Director Leland. Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk, anything online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment.
Manager Burton, do you have your direction?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Anyone? Negative, late.
Mr. Mayor, did Commissioner Reed had asked for consensus? Do we still need to move forward with that?
What do you think?
Well, Mr. Mayor, based on what you said and the manager said, I think we're fine, but the rest of the commission feel comfortable moving forward with some temporary permit fixes while we wait for the full ERP.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And any final comments from the commission? If not, this meeting is adjourned.